I was giving away a box of assorted kitchen items for free. Plates, cups, utensils, nothing fancy. A woman messaged me asking for photos of every single item inside the box. I sent a few. She asked for more. Then she asked for close-ups of the forks because she was very particular. I reminded her it was free. She said that didn't mean standards disappear. She asked if I could separate the items so she could choose only what she wanted. I said no, it was all or nothing. She replied that she didn't want clutter energy in her home. Fair. She then asked if I could hold the box for a week while she decided. I gave it to someone else that afternoon. She messaged later saying I lacked patience and that free items should come with flexibility. Thais. I listed a treadmill for $300 and clearly wrote, "Heavy, bring help." A man showed up alone wearing flip-flops. He asked if I could help him load it. I said no, as stated in the listing. He looked offended and said neighbors usually help. I reminded him I was not his neighbor. He tried to lift it himself, failed, and sat down on the treadmill to rest. He then asked if I could at least drive it to his place since he'd already come all this way. When I declined, he accused me of wasting his time. He left without the treadmill, but messaged later asking if I'd reconsider because his wife really wanted it. I sold a bookshelf for $80. A woman messaged me asking if it was sturdy. I said yes. She asked if it could hold encyclopedias. I said probably. She asked if it could hold emotional weight. I ignored that part. She arrived, pushed on the shelf slightly, and said it felt spiritually unstable. She asked for a discount because she planned to put plants on it and didn't want negative energy. I said no. She said money wasn't the issue, it was trust. She left without it, then messaged me later asking if I'd take $40 since she'd reflected. I listed a used iPhone with a cracked screen for a fair price and clearly mentioned the damage. A teenager messaged me asking why the screen was cracked. I explained. He said that seemed careless. He offered me half the price because he'd have to look at the crack every day. I declined. His father messaged me next, saying his son deserved a deal because he was learning responsibility. I said responsibility includes reading listings. The father replied that I lacked empathy and that someday I'd regret choosing money over teaching moments. The phone sold later that evening to someone who didn't need a life lesson bundled with electronics. I listed a solid wood bed frame for $150. The post included photos, measurements, and a very clear note that it required tools to disassemble. A man messaged me asking if it was easy to move. I said it depends, but it needs to be taken apart. He said that sounded inconvenient. I agreed. He showed up anyway. He stared at the bed frame for a few seconds, then asked when I planned to take it apart for him. I told him I wasn't planning to. He sighed loudly and said sellers should prepare items for buyers. He asked if I at least had tools he could borrow. I did. He then asked if I could help because he was more of an ideas guy. After 15 minutes, he gave up and asked if I'd lower the price since he'd wasted gas. I reminded him he chose to come. He said that felt unfair. He left without the bed, but later messaged me asking if I'd deliver it assembled. I listed a barely used air fryer for $60. A woman messaged me asking why I was selling it. I said I upgraded to a larger one. She asked what was wrong with the old one. I said nothing. She said that didn't make sense. She wanted to know if it ever burned food, made noise, or smelled strange. I said it worked fine. She asked if I could guarantee it would still work a year from now. I told her no one can guarantee appliances. She said that made her uncomfortable. She offered $20 since she was taking a risk. I declined. She replied that I was clearly hiding something and that honest sellers don't avoid guarantees. The air fryer sold the next day to someone who asked one question. Does it turn on? I was giving away a free coffee table with a small scratch on one leg. I included photos. A man messaged me asking if the scratch was noticeable. I said only if you're looking for it. He came to see it, crouched down, and ran his finger over the scratch like a detective finding a clue. He asked how it happened. I said probably from moving. He said that felt careless. He asked if I'd consider repainting it before he took it. I reminded him it was free. He said free doesn't mean unfinished. He asked if I could at least sand it down so it felt smooth. I gave the table to someone else who showed up 5 minutes later and didn't inspect it like a crime scene. I listed a desk chair and wrote that it was comfortable but not ergonomic. A man messaged me asking what that meant. I explained. He said he had back pain and asked if this chair would fix it. I told him no chair fixes medical issues. He asked if I was sure. He wanted reassurance. He said he'd blame the chair if his back still hurt. I suggested he talk to a doctor. He didn't like that answer. He asked if I'd take a lower price since the chair didn't come with guarantees. When I declined, he said sellers should care about buyers' health. The chair sold later to someone who just needed a place to sit. I sold a set of curtains and clearly listed the length. A woman messaged me asking if they would fit her windows. I asked how tall her windows were. She said, normal height. I explained that windows vary. She said that felt overcomplicated. She bought the curtains anyway. Later that night, she messaged me saying they were too long. She asked for a refund. I suggested hemming them. She said she didn't own scissors and that modifying them wasn't what she signed up for. She asked if I could come pick them up. I didn't respond. I listed a used printer for $100 and clearly stated it did not include ink. A man messaged me asking why there was no ink. I explained that printers rarely come with ink when sold used. He said that seemed unfair. He asked how he was supposed to test it. I said he could turn it on. He wanted to print something. I said he'd need ink. He asked if I could buy ink so he could test it, then deduct the cost from the price. I declined. He said I was making the process difficult on purpose. The printer sold the next day to someone who already had ink and expectations aligned with reality. I listed a used couch for $150. Clean. No stains. Smoke-free home. A man messaged me asking if anyone had ever sat on it while sad. I thought it was a joke. It was not. He explained that sadness seeps into fabric and affects posture over time. I told him it was a couch, not a therapist. He asked if I could guarantee it hadn't been used during breakups, financial stress, or political arguments. I said I could guarantee none of that. He replied that honesty was appreciated but asked for a discount due to emotional depreciation. I declined. He said Americans overshare emotions but don't take responsibility for emotional furniture. I blocked him and sat on the couch one last time, emotionally neutral. I sold a lawnmower and clearly wrote gas-powered. A woman messaged me asking if it was environmentally mindful. I said it was a lawnmower. She asked if it had ever harmed pollinators emotionally or physically. I said it cuts grass. She asked if I could convert it to electric before pickup. I said no. She then suggested I reimburse her for future carbon guilt if she bought it. When I stopped responding, she sent a paragraph explaining that sellers should evolve with climate consciousness. The mower sold the next day to a man who immediately asked where the pull cord was and nothing else. I listed a baby crib that my child had outgrown. A couple arrived and stared at it silently for a full minute. The woman asked if the crib had ever been near crying. I said it was a baby crib. The man asked if the crying was excessive. I asked what that meant. He said some babies cry more aggressively and it leaves an imprint. They asked if the crib had ever been involved in sleep regression. I said yes. They looked concerned. They whispered to each other and decided the crib carried chaotic infant energy. They left saying they needed a crib with calmer vibes. I donated it to a family whose baby screamed immediately and didn't care. I sold a used bike. A man showed up wearing full cycling gear like he was about to compete professionally. He inspected the bike and asked why I was selling it. I said I don't ride anymore. He asked why. I said life changed. He said bikes absorb abandonment issues. He rode it down the driveway, came back, and said the bike felt hesitant. I told him that was the break. He asked if I'd ever failed at cycling goals while owning it. I said probably. He nodded seriously and offered $100 less due to unresolved athletic trauma. I declined. He rode away on his current bike, still chasing something. I listed a mirror for $30. A woman messaged me asking if it reflected truthfully. I asked what that meant. She said some mirrors distort self-image emotionally. I said it was from IKEA. She came to see it and stared into it silently. She frowned and said it made her look tired. I said maybe she was tired. She didn't like that. She said the mirror lacked encouragement. She asked if I had one that made people feel confident. I said no. She suggested sellers should label mirrors based on emotional outcomes. She left saying Americans already struggle enough with self-esteem. The mirror sold to someone who checked their hair once and left. I listed a washing machine for $200 and clearly wrote, "Works perfectly." A man messaged me asking why I was selling it if it worked perfectly. I said because I moved. He asked why I moved. I said personal reasons. He said that felt evasive. He wanted to know if the machine had ever failed during an emotionally important load of laundry. I asked what that meant. He explained things like job interview clothes or post-breakup hoodies. I said it washed clothes. He asked if I could run a live demo on FaceTime to prove it wouldn't betray him. I declined. He accused me of hiding mechanical trust issues. I listed a TV stand and mentioned it required assembly tools. A man showed up with no tools. He asked if I could disassemble it for him. I said it was already assembled. He said yes, but not in a transport-friendly way. He asked if I could take it apart and reassemble it in his apartment later. I asked if he was paying extra. He said no, but it would be a good test of customer care. He then asked if I had spare screws in case he lost some. I said no. He sighed and said this transaction felt hostile. He left empty-handed but satisfied that he had stood up for himself. Refrigerator for $300 and clearly stated the dimensions. A man messaged me asking if it would fit in his kitchen. I asked for his measurements. He said he didn't know them. I told him to measure. He said he preferred to eyeball things. He came anyway. The fridge did not fit. He said the fridge was misleading because it looked smaller in the photos. I reminded him the measurements were listed. He said numbers are confusing and sellers should rely more on visuals. He asked if I could take the doors off the fridge, the doors off his kitchen, or both. I said no. He said I wasn't being solution-oriented. He left and later messaged asking if I'd accept $150 since the fridge caused inconvenience. I sold a used mattress and wrote, "Firm." A woman messaged me asking how firm. I said firm. She asked if it was hotel firm or chiropractor firm. I said normal firm. She asked if I could guarantee she wouldn't wake up sore. I said no. She asked if I'd accept returns after 1 week of sleeping on it. I said absolutely not. She said that felt unfair because mattresses are a long-term commitment. I reminded her this was Facebook Marketplace, not Costco. She said sellers should adopt modern retail standards. I blocked her. She later messaged from a different account asking if the mattress was still available. I listed a used car with full maintenance history. A man showed up and asked why I didn't replace the tires last month. I said because they still worked. He said buyers expect new tires. I said then buyers should buy new cars. He asked if I would replace them before selling. I said no. He asked if I would deduct the cost of tires from the price. I said that would be his expense after purchase. He said that logic discouraged trust. He then asked if I could hold the car for 2 weeks while he thought about it. I sold it the next day. He messaged angry, saying I moved too fast. I listed a TV and wrote, "No remote." A woman messaged me asking how she was supposed to use it. I said universal remotes exist. She said she shouldn't have to buy extra things. I said the price reflected that. She asked if I could include a remote from a different TV. I said no. She asked if I could order one online for her. I said no. She said sellers today lack accountability. She still bought the TV, then messaged later asking which button turns it on.